Well, hey there, everyone. Happy Tuesday. Hope y'all are having a good week. Super excited to be here for today's Tip Tuesday because today we are talking all about the third round of COVID financial relief. The bill was signed, I believe it was March 11th by President Biden. And there were some good things in this bill. So I wanted to bring that information to y'all here, give you a bit of an update on what is in the bill, how it might affect you personally and financially, and also some 2020 tax items that were in the bill that are really important. So whether you've already filed your 2020 tax return or you're just about to, definitely listen up because this might affect you. So to kick it off, let me start here at the top. The very first thing that was in the bill that's really important to know is that there will be $1,400 stimulus payments per person. Let me pull this sucker off. So $1,400 per person. That is going to have an income cap. So the income cap is so if your adjusted gross income is $150,000 if you're married filing joint, $112,500 if you're head of household, or $75,000 if you're single, this amount will start to decrease. It fully decreases at $160,000 for married filing joint, $120,000 for head of household, and $80,000 for single. So what you might notice is that there's less of a range in this round between when it starts to phase out and when it completely phases out. In the prior two bills, there was a phase out period, but it was a much bigger phase out amount from the low to the high end. So just know those numbers. If you're at 150K married filing joint or 75K single, that's when your amount's going to start to phase out. But otherwise, $1,400 per person, stimulus payments. It's also going to include $1,400 per dependent. So in the past, you may have gotten payments for your kids. If they qualify as dependents for you under this bill, you're going to get $1,400 per dependent this time around as well. Again, it's going to be based on your most recently filed tax return. So if you haven't filed 2020, they'll base it off of 2019. If you've already filed 2020, they'll base it off of 2020. And just so you know, the way this works is in theory, the amount is based off of your 2020 income. But of course, before you filed your 2020 return, they didn't have that to go off of. So they had to look at 2019 or 2018. When you file your 2020 return, you have an opportunity to potentially get more if you were disqualified or if you didn't get the full amount because your 2019 income was higher than your 2020 income. So let me just say that again a different way. If your income in 2020 is lower than your income was in 2019, you may qualify for some or all of the stimulus payment that you did not previously receive. There's a form on Form 1040, which is your personal tax return that you'll fill out. It helps you claim what's called the recovery rebate credit. Now, I also just want to point out that if you receive stimulus payments based on 2019 and your income went up in 2020, you're not going to have to pay any of that money back or pay tax on it or anything like that. So reporting what you received in stimulus payments on your 2020 tax return doesn't hurt you. It can only help you. So definitely fill out that form. Make sure you do that form if you think potentially you're going to be eligible for more. But I want to be clear, that's really talking about kind of those first two rounds of stimulus. The second one hasn't been paid out yet, right? So the credit that you're going to get is not going to include this third round, excuse me. This third round has not been paid out yet. Now, we have heard from the government that people may have started to receive payments as early as this past weekend. I have not heard of anyone who's gotten a payment yet, but it sounds like they're working pretty fast to get them coming to you very quickly. So hopefully folks start to receive that soon. You can always go on the IRS's website, irs.gov. if you want to make sure that they have your direct deposit information, because that's the quickest way for them to get this money to you. Otherwise, they have to send you a check that takes a lot longer. So go on to irs.gov, check to make sure that they have your direct deposit information. And again, it's going to be based on the most recent tax return they have on file. So if you end up qualifying because of if you didn't qualify based on 2019, but you would qualify based on 2020, my normal advice to you would be hurry up and get your 2020 return in. But there's one caveat to that, which is if you received unemployment benefits in 2020, you actually may not want to file your tax return quite yet, because I'm going to talk to you in a few minutes about another benefit in the bill that's going to affect that. So it's kind of a a murky situation right now if you haven't filed 2020 and you would only qualify because of 2020. I would talk to your tax advisor. It's the timing is going to be a little bit rough on that one. And that's only if you've gotten unemployment benefits. If you did not get unemployment in 2020, then I would go ahead and get that 2020 filed fast so that they can base your stimulus check on that. Okay, so some other changes that have happened. So the PUA, which is the Pandemic Unemployment Assistance, this is the system they set up for self-employed folks. As you may recall, self-employed folks don't normally have access to the unemployment system, but the federal government set one up called PUA, and they have extended this for self-employed people through September 6th. So it was originally going to expire here in March. It's now extended through September. And then along with that, and this is not just for self-employed folks, but for everyone, the federal government has extended that additional $300 in unemployment benefits per week through September 6th. So if you've been on unemployment, you may know that this is an additional $300 on top of whatever your state offers you. It was $600 at the beginning of the pandemic. Then it went down to $300. I think for a hot second it was $400, or maybe that never got passed. But basically it's $300 now, and they're going to extend it through September 2nd. So that's an additional $300 per week over and above whatever your state offers you. So that's been extended as well, which is great news. Now, this is the big unemployment news, this one right here. So the first $10,200 of your unemployment benefits that you received in 2020 are going to be tax-free at the federal level, meaning you do not have to pay income tax on them. So if you've been watching me for a while, you know I've been really harping on this fact that unemployment benefits are taxable income and you will have to pay tax on them. And I've been saying to beware of this because a lot of states don't automatically withhold federal taxes on the unemployment benefits. So I know a lot of folks, and including some of my clients who, when we went to do their tax returns, were getting hit with a big tax bill because they didn't realize unemployment benefits were taxable income. They didn't realize that the state wasn't withholding federal taxes on their behalf, and so they got a big tax bill. So the good news is, if that's you, that the first $10,200 of your unemployment benefits are going to be tax-free as long as your household income is under $150,000. Now, they haven't come out, the IRS has not yet come out with guidance to make it super clear what they mean by household income under $150,000. If it's adjusted gross income, which is literally a number on your tax return, that makes sense to me as a tax preparer, so that may be what we see. It's also unclear if that number is going to be different for single versus married filing jointly. That's not how it's written in the bill. In the bill, it just says households under 150K. So kind of unclear. We're waiting for guidance from the IRS, but this is the really important piece. If you have not filed your 2020 tax return yet, and you received unemployment benefits in 2020, and you suspect that your income will be under 150K, or it's even just right on the cusp, then you probably should wait to file your 2020 tax return. Because right now, if you file your tax return right now, the forms, and especially the e-file system, are just not set up to be able to reflect that $10,200 is tax-free. And you might be thinking, well, no biggie, I just won't include it on my income numbers and it'll be fine. The problem is you probably got a Form 1099-G from the government, from the state government, which would reflect the total amount of unemployment that you received. And the form that they sent you correctly at the time says that full amount is taxable income. So if you go and file your return now and you just exclude that $10,200, there's probably going to be a trigger in the IRS system that goes, hold on, we got a 1099-G for this amount, but the return only reflects this amount. And boom, you're going to get a notice and it's going to be a pain in the butt. So I would recommend waiting. That I'm working with my tax software system. I know all the tax software systems are aware of this. They are waiting for guidance from the IRS. They are prepared to move and update their systems as soon as they get that guidance. But I would not file your 2020 return yet if you received unemployment benefits in 2020, and if you think your your household income falls under 150K, or even if you think you're on the cusp. If you're above that, if you make 300 grand, there's no way your household income's getting under 150K, no worries. Go ahead and file it. You're not going to get to take advantage of this tax benefit. Now, the big question I've been getting from folks is, well, what happens if I already filed my 2020 return? Great question. Again, don't know. We're waiting on guidance from the IRS. The answer pending any specific IRS guidance would be to file an amended return. You would essentially go file a return, and whatever form they come out with, you would fill out, and you would basically say this $10,200 is not taxable income. Boom, you'd get a refund for the money you've paid. But let's wait, because the IRS may come out with some guidance that says, hold on, we don't want millions of people filing amended returns for this one item. We've figured out a way, we're going to reconcile this, just hold on. So I highly recommend, if you have already filed for 2020 and you think you're going to be able to take advantage of this tax benefit, just wait. I know patience is really hard, especially when it's our money that's not in our pockets, but I want you to just wait, because I suspect the IRS is going to come out with some pretty specific guidance on how to handle that situation. So bottom line is, just know that if you fall in this bucket and you think that you may qualify for this unemployment benefit of having up to $10,200 be tax-free, you're going to want to just wait. Let's get the guidance from the IRS. Now, the other thing I just want to point out to folks is, even if this does not apply to you, be aware that what will likely happen when the IRS issues this guidance and they send it to all the tax prep software companies is there will likely be a period of time, it could be a day, it could be a couple of days, where the IRS will shut down e-filing so that they can update their system. So even if this doesn't apply to you, you may find that you can't file your tax return during a certain period of time because their system is shut down. So if you're in a huge rush to get a refund or something like that, just be aware of that if this doesn't apply to you, you'll probably want to get your return in sooner if you're in a rush, so that you don't end up getting caught in that period where they're shut down. If you're not in a rush, don't stress. Take your time, whatnot, but just keep that in mind as well. So that's a big one coming out of the bill. Okay, so the next big one coming out of this is they've expanded the child tax credit. So this is, I believe it was actually $2,000. Is that right? I'm pretty sure it was $2,000 before. So this was essentially a credit for folks who have children, hence the name, and they have almost doubled it. So they've expanded it to $3,600 if your child is under 6, and $3,000 if your child is under 18. Now, there are phase-out thresholds for this as well. So if you're single, this works for income up to $75K. If you're married filing joint, it works for your adjusted gross income up to $150K. So if your adjusted gross income is above those numbers, you're not going to get to take advantage of this tax credit. But if this is a tax credit that you qualify for, you're going to get almost, 50% more to 100%, to almost 100% more of what you would have gotten, because they've expanded this amount. They've also changed two aspects about this. So number one, they have made this child tax credit fully refundable. So what that means is, before, let's just say that you qualified for a $2,000 credit before, but let's also say that you only owed $500 in tax. You wouldn't get the full $2,000 benefit of the credit. You would only get benefit up to the amount you owed in tax, $500. So you'd actually end up essentially leaving $1,500 of a tax credit on the table. That's a non-refundable credit. When it's a refundable credit, which is what they've just made the child tax credit, you get the money whether or not you have the tax liability. So in that same situation, if you owe $500 in tax for the year, but you're entitled to a $3,600 credit, you're going to get the $3,100 check from the IRS for that refundable credit. So good news there. The other thing that they've done is they've set it up to where folks who qualify for the credit can actually receive monthly payments. Now, I'm going to be honest, I have not seen guidance on this yet. I don't know how this is going to work. I don't know how you apply for this. But I think the idea is, if you qualify for this credit in 2021, instead of waiting until you file your tax return in April of 2022, for the 2021 tax year to get this credit, you're somehow, through some mechanism, you're going to be able to get monthly payments of that amount throughout 2021. The idea is to get more money into the pockets of families who are struggling right now because of the pandemic, right? So great all around. We just don't have guidance yet on exactly what that looks like. When we do, I promise I will share that with you here. So that's that one. All right, what else do we have? Oh, this is a good one too. So if you are a business owner and you paid family and sick leave for your employees, if you paid it at any point, you may know that you are likely entitled to a tax credit for the amount that you paid. Now, there are very specific rules on who has to pay paid family and sick leave. And by the way, it was required for a lot of employers in 2020. That requirement has gone away, but employers can still opt to pay it for their employees. But there are very specific rules around what is paid sick leave, family and sick leave. It's not just like, oh, I want a day off. So there are specific rules around that. But if you've paid your employees for those days that they've taken, you can get a tax credit. Well, originally the tax credit was going to end March 31st of 2021. So it was actually originally December 31st, 2020. They extended it to March 31st, 2021. They've now extended it through October 1st, 2021. So if you are an employer and you have employees and they are out sick because of COVID, or a family member's out sick because of COVID, I would highly recommend continuing to pay them if you can for those days, because you, in theory, will get a tax credit for it. So there's almost no reason not to. I'm oversimplifying it, of course. There's a lot of different mechanisms for how you actually get this credit and where it gets reported. It's not reported on your 1040 or anything like that. It's reported on your payroll tax forms when you file them, but just keep that in mind if you do pay employees. The other thing that I want to mention, and actually, I don't think I have, let me give me a hot second on this one. Yeah, I don't have a little thing for this, but I want to mention this as well, is if you are self-employed, you don't have any employees, but you're self-employed. This wasn't actually, this was part of the bill. I'm trying to remember if this part of the bill or this was before, but if you're self-employed, you don't have any employees, and you were out sick in 2020 because of COVID. So either you got sick or you had to quarantine. I don't mean like the state said everybody should stay home. I mean like you were literally told you had to quarantine, or a family member got sick or had, something like that. There are a few different scenarios, but if one of those applies to you, and so you could not work in your business because of that, you can actually now get a tax credit as well. Now, it's not going to be a tax credit for an amount you paid yourself in theory, because you probably didn't pay yourself, or it doesn't work like that. We're not employees or businesses, but they do have a calculation for how much you will get. It depends on why you were out, how long you were out, the profits of your business. So if you were self-employed in 2020, even if you did not have employees, if you yourself were unable to work in your business because of some COVID health reason, so not just your shop was closed down, but you got sick or you had to quarantine, or a family member got sick or had to quarantine, you may be entitled to take that tax credit as well. Check on your tax return, check with your tax preparer, and they can help you figure that out. So another piece that's part of the most recent stimulus bill is that the federal premium subsidy for health insurance has changed. So it used to be that enrollees paid no more than 10% of their income. There was an income cap. They've reduced that to 8.5%. So if you are one of the people that takes advantage of health insurance subsidies from the federal government, this is good news for you, because the cap of what you have to pay has now decreased 1.5%. They also, so for those who earn more than the current cap of 400% of the federal poverty level, which is about $51,000 for individuals and about, I think it's 105,000 for a family of four, will now be eligible. So they've increased the eligibility. I think it used to be, so the current cap is 400%, but they've now increased it. So you may be eligible for those subsidies as well. So good news there. Some other big things coming out of the COVID stimulus bill. So there is an investment of $15 billion into the Eidl program. This is the loan program that's run through the SBA. It's the Economic Injury Disaster Loan Program. A lot of folks I know took advantage of this. It's a really great program. It is a loan. It's not forgiven, so you do have to pay it back over time, but the interest rates are pretty low, and it's relatively easier to get approved for than for other loan programs. So if you are in need of funds for your business, this is something to check out. They are also putting $7 billion additional into the PPP fund, which is the Paycheck Protection program. This was for folks who wanted to get funds to continue to pay their employees or themselves. You count as well, even if you're a sole proprietor. And the benefit of this one is your loan will be forgiven provided you meet certain criteria. You spend a certain percentage of the money on payroll, and you fill out the application and a few other things. So $7 billion going into that program as well. And they are prioritizing small businesses. This was a huge problem before. When they first announced these funds, really big businesses were coming out of the woodwork and applying for these loans, and were scooping up lots of the money. And a lot of small businesses got left behind. So hopefully no longer. Small businesses are now being prioritized for these, but I highly recommend if you're interested in either of these loan programs, definitely contact your lender. So the PPP goes directly through sort of a third-party lender, but one that's approved by the SBA, and the EIDL goes directly through the SBA. So if you want to do the EIDL, go to the SBA's website, sba.gov. PPP, you can still go to their website, use their list to find a lender, or I would honestly just start with your bank that you do all of your business banking at. They can usually be a good resource, but I would reach out now, even if you're not sure you want to do the loan, at least start that conversation, because those funds are going to get scooped up fast. There are a lot of businesses that are still in trouble. Now, I don't have it as a little bullet point here, but if you are in the restaurant or entertainment industry, keep in mind a big part of this bill was $25 billion was set aside for a grant program just for folks like you, so just for restaurants to help with your operations. So if that is your business, also look into that, the details of those. I have not seen guidelines yet, but I haven't been tracking that one as closely because none of my clients are restaurants. So just keep an eye out for that one. If you are in fact a restaurant, you may be able to take advantage of that. And they're grants, as far as I understand from the bill, meaning you don't have to pay them back. They may still be taxable income. I didn't read that closely to see if they are or not, but you don't have to pay them back. So if you are a restaurant, definitely check that out. And then the last thing, did I want to mention this other thing? Yes, okay. The last thing is they are also now doing targeted EIDL grants up to $15,000. So some of you may have taken advantage of this, but excuse me, the EIDL program announced pretty early on in the pandemic that they would do advance grants. And the idea was that it was a way to get cash into the pockets of business owners who needed it immediately while they were waiting for their SBA EIDL loan applications to be reviewed and hopefully approved. And the way the grants worked was they were up to $10,000. It was $1,000 per employee in the business, and the self-employed person counts as one. You did not have to pay the amounts back. Did not count as taxable income, and you could keep them even if your EIDL loan application was ultimately rejected. So good news all around. They are coming back with this. I mean, they still had them, but I think they ran out of funds. They are coming back with this. Now they're going to be up to $15,000, but they're going to be targeted. And the idea here is to make sure, again, that funds get into the hands of business owners that need it, not the big businesses that don't. So more details will be coming on that. My understanding, and actually it occurred to me, I meant to check it this morning, but let's see if we find anything when we do a quick search. My understanding is that they are actually reaching out to folks who qualify. And in fact, yes, I just found this Q&A. So basically what happens is if you qualify, you will get an email from the SBA that invites you to apply for this, and you can apply. So you can't just go and apply for it on your own. It's not just open to everybody. It's really focused on priority groups. And so the priority groups are small businesses, especially small businesses in hard to hit areas. They are nonprofits. They are businesses that were specifically hard hit, like venues, things that had to shut down. So they have very specific rules on who those priority groups are. And again, you would have received you will receive an email invitation if you're invited to apply for those. Okay, so the last thing, I think that was everything I wanted to cover. I'm just reading my notes here to make sure I haven't missed anything. And if you're watching live, I know a bunch of folks are. Put your questions in the comments if you've got any questions at all. I'm happy to answer them. Oh, this is a good point. So they have also changed the payment determination date. So what this is this is the date that you have to file by in order to get the full amount of 2020 stimulus funds that you qualify for. So the date is either the earliest of 3 months after the filing deadline, which in this case is July 31st, 2021, or September 1st, 2021. And the reason they wrote it like that, beyond just sort of being, the federal government and wanting to make things convoluted, is because they're leaving open the possibility that the 2020 personal tax filing deadline could get extended, right? So if that deadline gets extended to, it probably wouldn't, but I'm just gonna make something up. If the 2020 tax deadline got extended from April 15th to August 31st, 3 months after that would be November 30th. And so the way this is written is the earliest of 3 months after the filing deadline, or September 1st, 2020. So to put that into plain English, basically, if you want to make sure that you get the full amount of stimulus that you qualify for 2020, make sure you get your 2020 tax return in by July 31st, 2021. Again, this is for folks who think that they may be entitled to more stimulus funds based on your 2020 numbers. So typically what this is going to be is if your income in 2020 is lower than your income in 2019, this is probably you, because again, your stimulus payments would have been based off of your 2019 tax return. So if your 2020 tax return is going to show lower income, you want to make sure to get that tax return in by July 31st, 2021, so that your stimulus funds are going to be based on that. Hopefully that makes sense. So, all right, that is all I got for you. I'm going to leave it there. I'm going to give it a second just for questions, because I know that sometimes they can take a little bit of time. But I do want to just remind everybody that my Biz Money library is open for business. It's completely free. It's where I put all of my best Biz Money resources. And you can join it and sign up for it by going to megkwheeler.com/free. And I will tell you, we've already got some great stuff in there, but we are actually doing a big, revamp's kind of the wrong word, but sort of a big launch of it. I don't even know if that's the right word, but launch of it, if you will, on May 1st. We're going to put some really incredible resources in there on May 1st that I think you're really going to appreciate and enjoy. So grab your spot in it now, although there are unlimited spots. So I don't know, but grab your spot in it now, megkwheeler.com/free. Again, it's my free Biz Money library. It's where I put all of my Biz Money resources. And again, we've got some really good stuff coming to that library on May 1st, which I know feels really far away, but it's really not. It's like a month and a half, y'all. So not very much time at all. Anyway, I hope this was helpful. Let me know if folks have any questions. If you're watching on the replay, feel free to drop them in the comments. Otherwise, I will see you back here next Tuesday for another Tip Tuesday. And then this Thursday, as always, in my free Facebook group, the Badass Money Makers, for our weekly Q&A. See you then.